Hello and welcome to another episode of the VR Download, a weekly show most of the time, recorded live within the Upload virtual studios where we bring you the latest news, reviews, comments, and interviews from the VR industry. My name is Kyle, operations manager at Upload. And joining me today on the panel,
Hi, Ian Hamilton here, managing editor.
all right,
Welcome.
and over here to my left,
Hello, I'm Jamie.
yes.
Good to meet you all.
And we may have some other people join us back and forth. We're just having people try to connect, which is the lovely thing about our industry is that nothing is perfect just yet. We're on our way there. Okay, so let's get in. Are you guys ready? Let's get into this week's news.
Let's
Ready?
do it.
Yep.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so this week's news. The first subject of this week's news is HalfLife Alyx. We have a release date. Woohoo! March 23rd.
Yep.
What do you, what, Ian? Do you think we're actually going to see it exactly March 23rd? No hiccups, no problems, ready to go.
Yeah, they've invested too much in that date. They have to hit it. It's going to hit it. They've said it's done. I believe them. It's going to be ready.
Jamie, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of surprised. I felt like we were going to get into March, and we were going to get to. I'm going to say I predicted we were going to get to like the 20th, and everyone on the internet would be absolutely crazy asking where the heck this game was, and there would be no answer whatsoever, and it would launch at like the last second of the last minute of the last hour of March. But this continues a trend of Valve being very different in their marketing this time around, right? They're being very forward thinking. They're being very, I don't know if this is the right term, but like progressive. They are getting ahead of the curve much more than they have in the past. And yeah, this is a welcome piece of news. I'm really excited.
If the
What are your what? Actually, we'll start over here. Ian, what are your predictions on downloads and ranking of Half-Life Alyx once it comes out? Is it going to disrupt?
That's a great question.
Oh yeah.
Is it going to disrupt?
Yeah, I mean it's going to be on the top list. It should be on the top list for obviously the first month, but question is how many months is it going to be on the top downloads list?
Isn't the question will it be number one?
Sort of, yeah.
Across all of Steam or
Across all of Steam,
that's
will it be number one? Is that possible?
That's interesting.
I mean,
I
let's
hadn't thought
consider
about
the
that.
fact if a new Half-Life pancake game, 2D game came out, it would immediately, like, nobody would question the fact that it would immediately jump up to number one, right?
Yep.
Well, what about the VR then? See, that's, I think, the variable here.
The question is if it's even like physically possible, right? Like, I mean, what ranks? What Ian? I think you wrote the story about Walking Dead this week reaching the top 20. Was it of Steam VR bestsellers?
I think Harry wrote it, but I looked at it. I looked at that pretty close.
I feel like the games usually at the top are like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Fortnite on Steam. I have no idea. How does Steam even work?
Is there anything
What is
else
Steam?
big launching in March across all of PC?
A lot of the big console kind of games like Final Fantasy VII got delayed till April. So I think Doom Eternal is out in March. So that could be a big one. I don't think. Yeah, Cyberpunk got delayed, so I think it's a pretty open month actually. Now that you mention it, yeah.
And so the way they supposedly mark that is the 2 weeks after release is what they count, and that game. I mean, Alyx has been on pre-order for so many months. I wonder if they'll count there's a lot of people getting it for free though with the index.
Oh, that's very true.
That's a big chunk.
But I think they would still count those downloads, right? I think even if you base it on pre-sales now, it's that Alyx actually ranks pretty highly if you look at the best-selling stuff on Steam. I could be wrong about that, but I feel like I've looked once or twice and been like, "Wait, how is that game in the top sellers list?" Oh, because it's on pre-sale. So, but I hadn't thought about that. That's going to be a real big test.
Other than news outlets talking and discussing about Half-Life Alyx, have you personally seen any marketing or advertisements for the game?
I mean, for Valve, that's an interesting question because Valve, It was Valve's first ever tweet announcing Half-Life Alyx. That is, and like the significance, sorry, of that cannot be understated. This is not a company that has had a traditional marketing campaign, and now they are starting to resemble something a little more traditional. So no, I haven't seen, logically from there more traditional marketing yet. But the fact that they are on Twitter talking about the game, the fact they are doing Reddit Ask Me Anythings about the game, is a step beyond what we've seen from Valve before.
What do you think, Ian? Have you seen any ads or anything at all?
No, it's
No?
exactly what Jamie said on the tweet. I mean, they've got their own marketing machine with Steam where they can post
Yep,
sort
that's
of
very true.
how they want, and they've got their commanding audience. And if you're a Half-Life fan, there's almost no way of escaping knowing about the title. I think
Yeah, for
the
sure.
harder question is, why would you buy an index for it? Like that's a harder thing for people to grasp. And the only thing that they've told us is that there's some. I'm actually using the index controllers right now, but you can't actually see the function of the three fingers. But they've said that there's some optional interactions with only the index controllers. So like crushing a can, you can do in the game only with the index controllers. And that's not a big selling point when you think about it. But when people actually get their hands on this game for extended periods, and I don't know, it might make a difference to some people who want the absolute best possible Half-Life experience after such a long wait.
Mm.
And of course, the headset isn't available for purchase right now. We're waiting for them to restock it.
Yeah, that's very true. They said they'll have news about that, though.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the next piece of news. Let's see what we got here. Oh, it looks like VR developer and longtime fan of Upload VR, Gerald McAllister, has his birthday today. Hello, Gerald, and happy birthday to you, sir.
Happy birthday, Gerald.
Can I take this opportunity to give away a code?
Hey, you know what? In memory of, no, he didn't die.
In memory?
No, but to celebrate, gosh,
What?
Bye, Gerald.
Gerald,
Bye,
what happened in
Gerald.
the last 5
Nice
seconds?
knowing you, buddy. To celebrate the birthday of one of our big fans and a great VR developer, Gerald, let's give away a code.
All right, so let me explain how this is going to work. We've got 10 codes from O-Shape to give away. This is for the Quest version of O-Shape. So if you're the way this works is you can find the redeem area on the Oculus app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a question, and then we'll paste the code into the YouTube chat minus some characters. So there will be a question mark in place of some of the characters. And so what you'll need to do is figure out what the missing character is based on the first letter or the first character of the answer to our trivia question. So let's get this started.
Oh, I'm excited.
And the answer to this question is the only one today that isn't a letter. So a nonagon has this many sides.
Ooh. And please tell us in the chat, I'll be monitoring the chat here. If you end up redeeming it successfully, let us know.
Yeah, it's nice to let us know and let everyone else know that there's a winner out there and they're going to be enjoying O-Shape today.
Toothless 2005. I got it, boys. So
Nice
there
work,
you go.
Toothless.
Congratulations.
So the answer
First
there,
in shapes.
a nonagon has 9 sides.
9 sides.
9 sides.
Woohoo.
Really? I thought it would be more. I feel like I would have known the name for a 9-sided shape. But I don't,
Well, now-
so I guess
now
I have to
you
go back
do.
to school. Well,
Knowing is half the battle. Okay.
this is true. This is true.
How many total codes do we have?
We have 10 codes, so that was question 1. We've got 9 more questions. I just did math there. I almost got it wrong.
You said 8 first.
I almost, yeah. I hope that.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, dear.
I love it. That's great. Okay, should we
bad.
move on to some more news then?
Yep.
Please.
Okay, great. All right. So the next bit of news, JDI is making a small VR LCD. It's currently used, we believe, I think, in the I always pronounce this wrong. Huawei VR glass. Is it
Huawei. Huawei. Sorry.
Huawei.
Huawei.
Okay, yeah.
Huawei.
All right. And it could mean more compact headsets soon-ish, maybe. It's a 2.1-inch LCD, which makes requirements for lenses is this jumping the gun, or do we like the idea of a mass-produced kind of standard screen?
Well, Ian,
Even
you've seen this screen, right?
So yeah, I saw this at CES, and it was hooked up
A
to
CES.
yes,
Didn't you see it
CES.
really long time ago at the Display Week conference as well?
Yeah, well, so I saw a JDA display, and I think they're the ones in the index. So what I
Okay.
saw was the very early panel at one of the display weeks that I
Yep.
think ended up in index and a couple other headsets. So this is
Okay.
a company that is clearly making displays that are used by some of the major VR developers currently. So a lot of the headsets on people's heads today are made by this same manufacturer. And so that's a very encouraging sign. So yes, I did try. So I tried the JDIs last year, and then I tried micro displays at CES recently, and I tried uh, the VR glass
Mm.
with positional tracking. And the issue there, that the issue with all of these displays is going to be making sure that we're not taking a step backward in terms of field of view in order to have a slimmer VR experience. No one
Mm.
wants to have decreased field of view. The only exception to that might be a media focused only headset that provides a great, HD or maybe even ultra HD picture with maybe 3DoF tracking, but a very slim design. Like that might make sense, but still taking that step backward on field of view. All the ones we've seen have had trade-offs in terms of field of view compared to what we're used to right now.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Just because you have a smaller, I've figured out how to make it. There you go. A smaller VR display, not tiny, but like small. You see that, everyone? Do you see the minutia between what I'm doing? Okay, doesn't mean like you can accommodate for a smaller screen with new types of lens technology, right?
Pancake
Like,
lenses is one, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So even though these screens are smaller, that doesn't necessarily mean that the headsets will have a smaller field of view. It could be that lens technologies are also implemented into the headset so that you'd still get either a similar or wider field of view based on the way they kind of distort the image, right?
They're going to have to
Is that
do new magnification. So like there's going to be it's a whole new optical path. And
exactly? Yeah.
I think my cat, I'm sure people out there can hear my cat. She's got some anxiety problems, and it seems like every time I'm starting to talk, she sees that I'm not talking to anyone in the room, and it's really bothering her. So she's going off in this living room here.
I didn't even know you had a cat.
Well, I've always been broadcasting from a different location. I'm broadcasting for the first time from my actual home. So yeah.
How about it? How about it?
Oh, the work we've gone through to get this working. I'm on an LTE connection right now, so I'm very happy. I've got my index microphone, so I'm coming from VR over an LTE connection with my index microphone, and I hope I sound soothing out there to the people and not
Your lips
extra
are moving
grating because you
perfectly
can
in
hear
sync.
me.
It's
Oh,
stunning.
you know what though? With my ugly internet today, no, there's a slight delay. It looks like for me,
No,
it
your
looks like
lips look
Ian.
pretty good too.
Oh well, thank you. I've been
Great lips all
complimented on
around.
my
Well
lips
done, guys.
before. Thank you. I think the critical piece to this story, in my opinion, is that it's mass-produced LCD screens specifically for VR. And whenever you mass produce something, you end up lowering the cost and making availability much higher. And so we've got lenses, we've got screens, we've got batteries, we've got other components that all make up these cool VR headsets. Are we one step closer to having a more affordable solution, even if it's a sacrifice of FOV?
That's a good point. I think the follow on to what you're suggesting is that if they're mass producing them, maybe they have someone out there ordering them in mass production to prepare for early 2021 or maybe even late this year.
Oh,
And
what
that
headset could be
is a
launching in
pathway.
2021?
But
I don't know.
Oh, that is not the company I was thinking of. But okay.
No,
Strawberry?
I was thinking Facebook
No?
Go To. Facebook
Oh,
Go
but
To
that is also
is an
another
obvious.
company I was thinking of.
Go
Yeah.
to. Interesting.
Isn't
Interesting.
JDI like? Isn't one of the backers or investors? I can't remember exactly what it is, but one of them Sony, right?
Okay, so PSVR2.
Yeah, some of the guys backing this display I feel like these are maybe the displays we're going to see in PSVR2. Maybe complete speculation. But that's kind of what we were assuming when you first saw them all the way back at a display week, like what, 2 years ago now or something like that, right?
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, it made sense that you were looking at them then, and you were really. I remember you were really keen on them when you saw them the first time.
Yeah.
It made sense that they weren't going to be in headsets next year, but maybe 3, 4, 5 years down the line, they could find their way into a headset. And if there was going to be any headset, it would probably be Sony, right? Because why would Sony be backing a new display technology and then not for VR, specifically for VR, and then not use it in their new VR headset, right? So
Yep.
I feel like that's the most likely path.
You know what I haven't done this episode yet is switch over my seat and check out the comments. So I'm gonna just move over here to this.
You've done a couple of leads.
I have. Let me take a look here. Taco Cat 4642
Great name.
has a Quest, and FOV of 90 is already pretty small. No lower, please, manufacturers. Brandon says 110 degrees has to be the minimum for any VR going forward. We can't go backwards. Andrew King says go to. I wonder how many programmers will joke about a go to being bad practice. Let's see here.
That's a pretty apt comment. No more ghost slagging off this episode, though. We've had enough of that recently.
Nice about Go.
Let's just be nice about Go. Smash It, great game. Land's End, fantastic game.
What do you think, Ian?
Standing and
you think we should give another code away?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's give another code away.
Question number two. Which game are you playing if you have cards labeled Thoughtseize, Force of Will, and Lightning Bolt?
And it looks like Chad Lawson got it with the answer. MTG.
Yo, Chad, well done.
Yep. Magic the Gathering. And please don't try to win 2 codes. If you've already got one and you've proven that you're very quick with your copy and paste and your knowledge of the random trivia we've picked, please don't try to redeem it a second time. Let it go around.
Let's test the 2 folks who have already gotten a code.
What painting technique involves painting on wet plaster?
That's my question of the day.
Did Ross B3000 got it?
The answer there is fresco.
All right, let's go on to the next story here, folks. Sony patents Valve Index-ish VR controllers with finger tracking. Now, I saw these things. They looked very rigid, and they were very square and not ergonomic at all. Now, obviously, this might just be the prototype, and it's not its final form, but I'm curious. Let's start over here. Jamie, did you see these pictures? Did you see how they work? What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing to point out to that front is that when it comes to talking about patents, like product design is not at the front of any company's mind, right? I mean, for one thing, they want to keep their products secret. They don't want to give away final designs and stuff like that. I think recently we kind of people spotted the PlayStation 5 development kit in one patent, and that's exactly the kind of reason you don't want to give away designs, because now everyone's using that development kit picture as like for mock-ups and stuff for the PS5. So the important thing with that patent is that they are trying to convey their finger tracking technology, which obviously they're working on because they patented it. And from what you can see in the documentation, it sounds very, very similar to basically what we've got right now on the Oculus Touch controllers, which is if you are resting your finger on the grip button or you're pressing the grip button, it'll go in. If you are resting your finger on the trigger button, it'll know it's touching it. And then where your thumbs are, if it's touching any kind of face button or an analog stick, it will know, and your virtual hands will replicate that, right? Same sort of thing with the Valve Index, just much, much, much more elaborate. There are a bunch of sensors on the Index to track every one of your fingers, and if it's not resting on the controller, it knows that it must be extended. And
I didn't look closely at the patent, and just Of the things you pronounce differently, patent is probably the most aggravating, up there
I
with
was triggered.
aluminium.
I was triggered.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Patent.
definitely triggered.
Just gotta say it.
Patent.
But were there
Pa-
analog sticks in the image?
Patent. So there's one again. There's one shot of like where the buttons and the sticks would be, and there's a bunch of circles, one of which could be an analog stick, but it's not easy to tell in any way. We have seen other Sony patents. There you go, for other motion controllers, and those have analog sticks on them. And I also think if Sony didn't release analog sticks or didn't have analog sticks on their next motion controller for their next PSVR headset, it would possibly be the dumbest thing any VR company has ever done. The whole thing about the moves is they didn't have analog sticks because they were originally designed for the PS3, right? Um, and
Mhm.
even then, people thought they should have had them, but they kind of repurposed them for VR. Despite the fact that PSVR has been quite successful for them, they've never redesigned the controllers and added analog sticks. So that's one of the big upgrades we're really, really hoping for with PSVR2. I don't, as in terms of the finger tracking, I'm very glad it's there. Ian, you have an Index. How is the finger tracking on Index in this day and age? Because I mean, you can't demonstrate it right now
Yeah,
because
no.
of the app, but
I wouldn't say. I would say that it's buggy in the same way that the Quest hand tracking is currently buggy. It's not 100% there, and it relies
mm,
on each developer's implementation of release. So, I mean, the thing you can't necessarily do with the hand tracking, the finger tracking on the Quest experimental channel right now is grasp something physically and then release it to throw something. So you would be just grasping air on the Quest, whereas you're actually grasping something physical when you do the hand tracking on the Index. And every developer can sort of decide their own implementation of when to recognize your full release. And so that still adds that kind of complete app to app difference between sensation. Like I just want one consistent way of throwing things that just works every time I throw something. I want it to
yeah.
just be natural and be exactly what I expect it to do every time. And I don't think it's really there yet.
Yeah.
I wonder because I did take a look at the patent. See, I can't say it that way, patent, and
The
it looked like
patent.
each individual finger had a little sensor for the finger to, but I'm curious about like on the Index, have you had it where you're holding it wrong and it picks up the wrong finger movement?
Yes. Yeah, that can happen. And it tries to sort of figure it out. So, like, even when you're holding it in your hand, you can kind of adjust it. And now my hand is holding the grip area in a completely different way just by moving my hand in the strap a little bit. So,
Mhm.
like, I can trick it by accident or on purpose. You know, I'm repositioning my hand, I'm pulling the strap so that it's tighter to my hand and getting a new grip. And so it's in theory, it's supposed to be smart enough to kind of pay attention
Mm,
to the differences and what you're doing. And you can like that first Aperture Hand Labs demo, you can kind of run all five fingers down the grip area and have it respond. But yeah, like I said, it's even yesterday with like Iron Lights, I was playing with David, and if you release the grip button, you release the weapon in your hand, and it was really easy to accidentally re-grab the thing. So like we played
yeah.
Duelist versus Duelist in Iron Lights, and you've got a shield in one hand and a sword in the other. And in theory, we both are like, okay, we're just going to fight sword to sword. So I should drop my shield and put it over here, and just barely tapping that grip area made me re-grab the shield. And so it looked like I was cheating because I was grabbing the shield when I was just accidentally touching the grip area on these things. So it's very sensitive.
The reason I ask that question is because what about all of the different sizes of hands? We've got children with small hands. We've got some people have big, giant, you know, gorilla style hands. I mean,
That
it comes
is
in all different shapes and sizes. So I'm just curious about how compatible it'll
that's very interesting. They actually put that in the patent, the patent, the patent, the patent, the patent.
be.
I've
Um,
gotten inside your head. I'm sorry.
I can't even remember which one I meant to say anymore. Um, and what they put that in. in their like known issues section of saying we haven't figured this out yet. But obviously, what happens if one guy's got a hand or girl has got a hand that's too big, and then someone's got a hand that doesn't quite reach the sensor bar? How do we work around that? And that was in their like designated known issues section. So that's a really good point.
I want to mention, like, also that the hands move in such intricate ways and the fingers move in such different ways. So, like, we tried a CES hand demo. I can't remember the company's name offhand. Where it was.
That was too good.
That was good. That was really good.
Where it could not recognize moving your fingers up and down, like relative to one another, and that's an intricate movement that, like, for serious simulation, you really need to be able to see. And it could only recognize sort of straight in and straight out for every single digit. And that's not going to cut it when you really want to, like, I don't know, grasp a cup and have your top finger go over the top of the handle and have your bottom two fingers go actually through the handle and have the top finger wrap around the handle exactly like you would. Just, you've got to be able to have some recognition of up and down movement as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There's I want to be able to tap my fingers on a table. I want to be able to do that sort of thing, like just kind of wrap my fingers against the table one at a time, or do one of those cool little, like, flip a coin around at the tops of my knuckles. Those are the types of precision that I would expect in maybe generation 3. You know, maybe somebody will come up with a wrist strap that goes around your hand and it's got leap motions that face your finger. I don't know. There's all sorts of fun stuff you could do. Nobody's done it yet, and so I guess we have to iterate still. I feel remiss. I should probably look at the comments and see if there's anything good here.
While you're looking, I would say one of the funny things is even the high end solutions of hand tracking that I personally seen, you can definitely tell that is a case of guessing where your finger is right now rather than accurately knowing and I don't know if this is the right word, but biometrically reading where your finger is and showing that with minimal latency. Like I've tried some of the like $5,000 solutions, and it's still very clear that they are basing like a slight arc in your finger, meaning that should be there, and a slight extension in your finger, meaning it should be there, as opposed to
I was noticing this, like, my fingers are tip to tip right now on the index controllers. So they're actually touching, and that's the difference here between the avatars we're using and the real life, you know. So it's pretty bad when I'm using this route, I guess.
I'll be darned. Mine are actually touching and touching. That's cool.
Oh no,
mine are because of the way we're doing this. One thing I also want to mention, like,
pistol whip.
Yeah. Have you noticed the scuffing of the camera lenses on your Quests? Like, if you use the pass-through mode on Quest, I've noticed a fair amount of smudges forming on the lenses, and I can actually see through the smudges in pass-through mode on the Quest. And I wonder, if the hand tracking works great when you first buy the Quest or whatever headset it is, and then you smudge up the lenses through just regular use, does that affect the quality of your hand tracking over time if the cameras can't properly see the intricate finger movements 6 months into using the headset? Be terrible if, like, the same way batteries run down over time and become less efficient, if the tracking has that same sort of degradation over time.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like what you're saying is that somebody needs to come up with screen protectors for the lenses on the VR headsets. That's an untapped market. Maybe
I remember
this is true.
Every time Apple comes out, they promise sapphire. They promised sapphire lenses at one point for their cameras, and then they realized they couldn't actually manufacture enough sapphire to put on the phones, I think, if I recall,
that was
something
a real
like that.
gem of an idea, wasn't it? Let's see what kind of comments.
As good as my joke.
Let's see here.
You two are like neck and neck this episode.
Yeah. Tip-to-tip compression. Yes, Andrew. That's correct. There's an official pistol whip tournament coming soon. I guess that's directed right at you, Ian.
That's on our article. Yeah, I'm going to
If you don't win that tournament, I'm going to be so disappointed.
Yep.
I guess let's go ahead and do another code then.
Question
Do it.
4. Question 4. Which Shakespeare play inspired the Heath Ledger film 10 Things I Hate About You?
Ooh,
Oh, I know
good
this
movie.
one. I
Yeah.
know this one.
You know,
They have the.
being here in Seattle, I've been to a lot of those locations in that
Mm.
movie and to the
Oh, is
school.
that a
It's really neat
Seattle-based
looking.
movie?
A lot of it is. Some of it's in Tacoma, which is just a little south.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Being in
school is in Tacoma. It's pretty cool.
being in the UK, I've heard a lot of Shakespeare. How about that?
I bet. I bet.
Yeah. It's true.
Christian Nielsen got it.
Well done, Christian. Happy birthday to you.
Rosenby wants to know: are the codes for Oculus or what?
Quest.
These
Yeah, they're all
are
for Oculus. I
Quest
explained it at the
codes.
beginning.
Yes.
O-Shape out today on Quest.
Yes.
Big giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
Throw some shapes.
We believe the game should have cross-buy on Oculus, so in theory, if you redeem it for Quest, you should also get it for Rift. Obviously through the Oculus store, not through
Absolutely.
Steam.
Mm-hmm. So we've got 6 more to go.
Yeah, you want me to do one more right
Let's
now?
do another one.
Do it.
Yeah, question 5. The last name of our games editor begins with this letter.
Oh, that's a good question.
It looks like Mango 1320 got it. And the answer is obviously Jagno with a J.
Thank goodness you pronounced it right.
It looks like those are the news pieces that we have for this week. And so
Apart from the next one.
No,
Sorry, I
no,
just
no.
completely
See,
cut
you're
you off.
jumping the gun. We have to do release.
Jamie
of
wants
All right,
out.
but
He's done.
be accurate. There's still
Release
more
of
news.
the
It's just a
week.
topic that we're going to discuss later.
Sort of, right. So what
No,
are the
sort of.
releases of the week? What have we played? And not pistol whipping.
Iron Lights. I played a bunch of Iron Lights. Did that on stream with David yesterday. You can find that in our YouTube history. Also been playing that in one-to-one dueling in my living room, and that is amazing to experience. So we've got 2 quests, and me and my kid stood on opposite ends of our living room, exactly sort of in the position of the dueling in Iron Lights. And then the way it works is it looks to the server to find so to do a private game, you each enter the same tag. So you each enter the same keyword into the tag area, and then you can only find matches with people who have that same tag. And then, so what it does, it looks to the server to find the tag and match it up, and then it connects the game over LAN, and it was reporting 1 millisecond of latency over there in the corner, which is amazing to have from headset to headset. And so every little movement where she slashes me and I get all defeated and look very sad, it's all perfectly matched, and we can hear each other in the same living room sort of yelling at one another and having a great, really fun time playing that Iron Lights game.
So
Um,
this was on Kickstarter, right?
It's on Kickstarter. I think it's also on Steam right now, so you can get it if you want it on Steam. You can't. I don't think it's possible to buy it on Quest yet until it gets official release.
Okay,
But
but
it's yeah.
didn't Kickstarter backers also get like beta access on Quest? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, so I backed it at $60 tier, which meant I got 2 copies of the game, and that's how I was able to get us both in Quest.
Brandon is asking an interesting question. Does it share the same Guardian, though? You know, that's
No.
interesting. When will we have shared Guardian? That would be fun.
Yeah, we've been talking about that. So we're very much looking forward to GDC, where we're going to see where we plan to see some very interesting ideas in various scales. So arena scale is sort of the ultimate end game, where right now we've got things like the Void, which has maybe dozens of cameras. Actually, the last time I saw the Void, they only had a few cameras. So they've clearly done some efficiency there to reduce the amount of external equipment they need to have the Void running. But backpacks, external cameras, that whole thing needs to go away for arcades and attractions to really take off. And so it seems like Facebook is being extra cautious here, because you see a game like Space Pirate Arena, and people are running at full speed in arena settings while essentially blindfolded. And that is a whole different level of danger, risk, kids walking into the play area, dogs walking into the play area. I tried an original Oculus Rift in a go-kart, driving around a real world go-kart track, and they put a button on the steering wheel that would rotate the world 90 degrees. It was all in testing phase. They told me not to press the button, and I'm doing the steering wheel thing, and I accidentally pressed the button, and the whole world rotated 90 degrees, and I slammed straight into a wall.
Why do they even have that button?
It was a testing. They were testing it, but they should have removed that button before putting a journalist in the driver's seat there.
So,
was
okay.
bad.
So, Jamie, have you
I'm
played
upset
anything
now.
releases of the week?
Two things. First of all, a little game called O-Shape, which we seem to be giving away in ad nauseum on this podcast, as they say. O-Shape is really, really cool. I reviewed it this week. It's been out on PCVR for a little while. It's out on Quest today. Like I said, I reviewed it, and I prefaced my review by saying that traditionally, and as people that listen to this podcast for a long time will know, I do not like VR rhythm games. I'm not big on them. It's not what I want to do in VR. I'm also not very good at them. O-Shape is probably the first VR rhythm game that I personally can get fully on board with. Now, what you do in the game, there's a couple of different mechanics, but the central mechanic is that you kind of throw shapes cut into blocks that are approaching you in like a kind of game of human Tetris. You have to, so let's say there's a silhouette cut into the block of like both your hands raised, then you have to imitate that move. And if you're successful, you'll pass through without losing like your streak or any points or anything. And then there's a couple of other things, like you have to grab coins out of the air, and also you avoid incoming blocks, and also you can punch certain blocks to like break them. And the combination of those four things for me was really, really compelling, very accessible. I've always found Beat Saber to just be a little too much on the kind of really dialed in, you have to be really good at it side, which I've always really struggled with. O-Shape, not only is O-Shape from the outset quite accessible and quite fun and quite, for lack of a better term, gettable by anyone that tries it, I think. It also comes with a whole bunch of options, like other VR rhythm games do, but it also comes with a whole bunch of options to twist the experience to how you want it to appear. So you can change how accurate you need to be with those shapes, for example, or you can change if you don't have a big room, you can choose a small room option, which means you don't have to walk around so much. And then you can do like obviously the obvious things like fail mode. You can even no fail mode. You can even slow down or speed up any of the free difficulties of the tracks, so that if you want to get practice in on hard mode, you can slow it down, memorize the patterns, or if you want to make hard mode even harder, you can speed it up. I just thought, as a VR rhythm game, it's really accessible and also really versatile. And just the core mechanic is so much fun that I really got on board with it. So
On
that's
board, not bored with it. On board.
On
what did
board, not bored.
What? What do you
It
mean?
sounded like you said that you were bored with it.
Oh, sorry. No, I got on board. On board.
On board, yes.
I got on
Just
board.
wanted to clarify that.
Second game I've been playing this week, Ghost Giant Oculus Quest. Love Ghost Giant still. Was my VR game of the year last year. Is moving from PSVR to Quest today. Really, really amazing narrative driven VR game. You really, really, really have to check it out.
Good stuff. All right. Now, I went in and played No Man's Sky because I'm that kind of person. And I can't find one of those eggs. I need to find one of those eggs so I can grow a ship. And I don't want to do any more quests. So I'm kind of being lazy about it. I'm at that point where I'm like over hundreds of hours in the game, and I've done all the grinding, and now it's just kind of trying to decide if that's worth trying to go find one of those eggs. But it's a constantly improvement on both PSVR and PC for VR. So if you haven't tried No Man's Sky in VR yet, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It's very
Dreams.
cool.
The ships are kind of
too.
gross.
Yeah.
Oh, you played it?
Dreams, and I've also played. Obviously not in VR. And
Yeah.
I've started on a Black Mesa. I mean, so those are both outside, but I want to get
Yeah,
through all the
yeah.
Half-Life games before
Isn't
release.
so? I'm excited that you've tried Dreams because I've been harping on about Dreams for a long time. I feel like that when it hits PSVR, which we're hoping will be a matter of, you know, months if not weeks. I feel like that's going to be a really significant release. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, I can't. It's hard to describe how visually compelling that game is. I keep thinking of this comparison, and it's not really apt, but Blade Runner 2049, I watched it on a giant IMAX screen, and the colors and everything in that game, I could not look away, or that movie, I
Yeah,
could not look away from the movie. And that's how I feel when I'm looking at Dreams. It's so visually
yeah,
just crisp that it's
yeah.
just it's
That's a really
astounding
good
how
way to put
pretty
it.
it is.
Actually, that very very similar color palettes. Now that you talk, now that you mention it, actually, yeah. Yeah. That if people don't know, Dreams is a. I hesitate to call it a game because really it is a game development tool made very 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 accessible. So the idea is that you buy the disc. I believe it's like what, like 40, 50, 60 bucks. And if you want to, yeah, you can learn all of the tools involved with that come with the game, which would probably take you, I don't know, like anywhere between 10 to 20 hours. I realize that's a big gap, but anywhere between 10 to 20 hours to master, I'd say. And then you can make levels and share them online. Or if you don't want to do that, you can just play through stuff that other people have made, which is a really, really crazy thing to do because even though the point of the game is to make new kinds of experiences and games, like the best way to convey it is to talk about things people have remade. And I've seen like the entire first opening section of like Fallout 4 remade, for example. I've seen someone like remake a significant portion of a Dead Space game in it. I've seen some really incredible stuff that would almost put like is up there with some of the best tilt brush art I've seen actually. For example, and that's just on with people making it on a screen. And Dreams is getting PSVR support via a free update at some point. We don't know exactly when, but I'm so excited for it to finally arrive.
Yeah.
Cool. Ian, you want to do another code before we take a quick
Yeah,
break?
sure. Question 7. What kind of triangle has all sides the same length?
I was going to blurt it out, but I didn't. I could have been wrong anyway. A parallel triangle. That's a wrong answer. Don't write that.
I tried to look up some really strange shapes, and all the strange shapes had like letters that the codes don't use in them. Like I noticed the codes don't use S's and stuff to try to keep
Mm,
people from confusing S's with fives, I think.
mm, mm. We should ask how many sides does the original HTC Vive have, including all the sides in an indentation in a tracking marker? I think that's a
Take
fair
half the
question.
night to count them all.
It looks like Taco Cat 4642 is our winner.
Well done, Taco Cat. Go throw some shapes.
It is time to move on to the hot topic of the week. And this is one I think that's going to be a lot of fun. It'll just be me and you here, bro, until Jamie comes back. But the hot topic is, will HTC make a comeback in the VR market? A comeback denotes a decline that needs to be reemerged. Like they need to emerge from some funk. Are you on board with the fact that HTC is kind of in limbo right now?
There's no other way to characterize it. If it's really accurate that there are more DK2s on Steam than Vive Cosmoses, there's that's astoundingly bad start for that headset. If you know it, obviously there's going to be a fair number of people with Vive Cosmos that are only going to Vive Port using their subscription program and using their store. But if that's really accurate, and you know, there's clearly a lot of things that can go wrong with that tracking metric of who's connected on Steam. But you know, that headset, the DK2, came out in 20 14, and still have more of those in use than Cosmos 6 years later. That's rough. That's really, 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 really rough. And so, yeah, I think you have to denote it as a comeback if that's
Wait,
really what they're
let,
hoping to do.
Okay,
so this
so
can I
for
lay this one
background,
out, Kyle? Because
Go ahead.
I've been planning to do this for a while. All right, listeners, watchers, I'm going to take you on a journey through the cosmos. Oh, wow, that was really good, wasn't it?
Oh,
Anyway.
you did it. You did it. Oh,
Oh,
join the club. Welcome. Yay.
I don't
Welcome,
want to be in this
Tetris,
club.
yay.
First of all, going a little further back, MWC, meant to be next week, Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, big mobile phone event. HTC usually has a big presence at it, cancelled because of the coronavirus. So lots of plans for companies that were planning to make big announcements now currently shifting around a lot. So earlier this week, I had a call with HTC. You will remember, maybe listeners, that at CES back in January, HTC pulled out of any kind of press meetings, any kind of press conference, any kind of announcement saying they have a new vision for Vive they are going to announce later in the year around MWC. We were all kind of really interested in as to what that might mean. We were speculating that maybe that they might be pulling out the consumer market. And we got to find out this week, which is basically for Cosmos, they are introducing 2 new bundles. So the original Cosmos is a $699 headset. Yeah, I'm right about that, aren't I, Ian?
Sounds right. I
Yeah,
hate. I
yeah.
always round their mounts because of the way it
Yeah,
tricks your
you love
brain.
rounding prices. But yeah, so $699 or $700, which is obviously quite expensive. On this call, they introduced a more expensive model, which is the Cosmos Elite, which rounds out to $900, which has the Steam VR tracking faceplate. Cosmos is a modular headset, so you can swap various bits and bobs out. One of them being the faceplates, which give you different tracking capabilities. There's a lot to explain here. And the second, arguably more important model is called the Cosmos Play. Now, the original Cosmos, bear with me, there's a lot to explain. The original Cosmos has 6 inside-out tracking cameras on its faceplate. Even though the Cosmos was announced with 4 inside-out tracking cameras when it was originally shown like a year and a half ago. Now the Cosmos Play has those 4 tracking cameras instead of 6. It also loses the snap-on headphones. You can still plug in any other kind of earphone that you want to or headphone that you want to, but it doesn't have the ones that come with the other 2 models. So HTC originally told me they were planning to release this at some point. They don't have a release date for $500. So $100 more than the Rift S, which is $399/400. Half the price of the full Valve Index kit, which is $1,000, right? The next day, they told me they were revising the price, which I did. Even now, I don't really know what that means. It might still be $500. They said, seeing as they don't have a release date, they don't have a firm price yet, they are looking at it to make it as consumer friendly as possible. As far as I'm aware, whatever the final price ends up being, it will still be cheaper than the original Cosmos package because it has to be, right?
You'd
Yeah,
like
it
to
has
think
to be.
that.
Someone reassure me. It has to be. Let's get that down on paper. And yeah, so that's where we are. Cheaper Cosmos Play, which I mean, at the end of the day, the big problem with the Cosmos was the price. Outside of all the kind of tracking issues it's had since launch, original model Vive Cosmos and Steam VR tracked Vive Cosmos, which other thing to point out comes not with the Steam VR 2.0 base stations, but the Steam VR 1.0 base stations that they released with the original Vive for $800 back in 2016. That's one of the 3 things they had to announce this week.
Does the new versions of the Cosmos still have the swappable front faceplates.
Yeah, so a lot of people have asked this, actually. That's a good point. Yes, as far as I'm aware, yes, you can still. So let's say you buy the Cosmos Play and you decide either that you want to get a Steam VR tracking faceplate for it or the 6-camera faceplate for it. You can still buy those separately and then just snap that off, put the other one back on. Obviously, Cosmos also has a wireless module that you can buy for it, and they told me there was an eye tracking module for it. I don't know if that's available right now or if it's coming in the future. The other thing they're doing is they are releasing a pass-through AR faceplate for developers in the coming months in Q2. So that's 4 inside. Oh man, 4 cameras for inside-out tracking and 2 extra pass-through cameras, much like the Lynx R1 headset we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And also kind of some of the demos we've seen for the Oculus Quest at Oculus Connect a couple of years ago, and also the Google Daydream has a sort of similar. The Mirage Solar has a sort of similar function. So that's being released for developers, and then the final piece of news before we can actually talk about this is what they call Project Proton, which is a concept VR headset for the far-flung future, which is a lightweight kind of redesigned thing that, I mean, it's concept, so they say they're not entirely sure with how it's going to look right now, but it's drastically reduced form factor, either with the idea that maybe there's kind of maybe some computing power on the back of your head, or maybe it's tethered to a 5G device and all of the content you're seeing is streamed. Um, Kind of a cool idea. I mean, 5G streaming on a dedicated VR device, dedicated 5G streaming on a dedicated VR device sounds like a lot. Very. Their plan was to show off a design of that under glass at MWC, but obviously that got cancelled, so we've only seen it as a picture. I don't really know what to make of that one, other than it's probably going to be 2 or 3 years before they have anything more concrete to share about it. But that's HTC news. Yeah.
So, is the so-called comeback needed because HTC wasn't putting out value in their product? Not just cost, but value.
So,
yeah.
When I spoke to HTC on the phone earlier this week, they acknowledged what they called a rough start for the Vive Cosmos, right? If you follow our reporting on Upload, you'll know that in the Steam VR hardware survey, which is the monthly survey.
I mentioned this.
Oh, you've already mentioned this. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I talked about this.
So Cosmos doesn't appear to be selling well. Also, Cosmos since launch, there have been complaints about kind of the tracking quality and the battery life of the controllers, things that they have addressed in certain updates, could probably keep addressing, right? So in the consumer market, and that's an important thing to say because I still believe that HTC does pretty well in the B2B market. In the consumer market, they definitely seem on the back foot, right? Like there is a lot of ground to be caught up there if they are going to remain competitive. Like not even just like in the future, but for the remainder of 2020, right? Like this, how long is this situation going to go on for before they can, if they can turn it around? It's a tall order.
I
Having
almost
said
feel like
that, Sorry, having said that, I
HTC.
just feel like
Yeah,
$500
go ahead.
is a smart
Yeah.
price. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I feel like HTC needs some form of like a fire sale or some sort of subsidized price where you can get their hardware cheaper.
They kind of always try to do something like that, and then the prices are $100 or $200 too high, right? Isn't the case right now? You can get an original Vive, but it's pre-owned, and that's $400. So the price of a Rift S is that how it is right now? I think that's what it is, which is
right.
It's like that would be an amazing initiative at $200, a pretty good one at $300. But why would you buy a pre-owned Vive at the same price as a new Rift? Just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Yeah, exactly.
You don't.
So I do feel like 500 is one of the times they've set a price, and I've been like, yeah, that's actually a pretty good price. Even at $100 more, I could see that being competitive with Rift S. But now I don't know if it's actually that price. So
Thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, lots of them. I don't know how many I want to utter
Vent.
right now because I want to be fair to them, and they deserve a fair shake. They deserve their room scale HTC Vive spawned so much creativity in the VR market and set the
Yep.
standard for what Facebook really needed to match in order to stay competitive.
Yep.
And so that stands as a mark what they teamed up with Valve to ship there in early 2016. But I've had conversations with various people over the years, uh, and it became clear to me that they didn't really. I got the feeling they really didn't know what kind of competition they were going to get from Facebook in
Mm,
this space. Like, you had a lot of people at Facebook who clearly bought into the Ready Player One mindset of making the hardware practically free.
yep.
So in Ready Player One, the book that came out right before this wave, they gave the headsets away to school children. Um, and they had models where all the money was made from this virtual economy that existed. And it honestly seemed like a lot of the early people at Facebook who got, consumed with the Oculus purchase and became Facebook employees were set on this goal of trying to make the hardware practically free as low as they possibly could. And it's just hit HTC again and again and again, this juggernaut of a
Yeah.
competitor that's willing to take massive losses on hardware.
Yep.
And I
Now,
don't know
now
how that changes.
I have to say that I want to give HTC major props for maintaining their presence in the market, pun intended, of course. And I really do believe that they are going to continue to help push forward. They're a necessary component to this industry. Whether or not folks are buying their headsets or whether or not they're still making them and they're still making them
Yeah.
available, and they do have their fan base and they do have their Vive port is very robust. So I think that there is a lot of value to having an HTC in the market to help push. Competition drives quality. We all know that.
Yep.
It's a basic principle. So I think it's valuable that HTC does have this comeback and does have a viable entry level or many options for people to choose from. I still believe that I want to see more headsets in more retailers. And HTC, if you're listening, throw some
Cosmai.
Cosmi on the shelves at stores and see what happens. Just a thought.
Mm.
Just a thought.
It's yeah, and like on the flip side of that point is also just I don't. This sounds weirdly biased. I don't want to see Facebook win at least this early, right? I don't,
I don't think
for many,
anyone
many,
does.
many different reasons. But I don't want even like in terms of my job, I don't want my reporting to just all be about Facebook. I don't want it to be about like how they're making the right moves because they can afford to, right? I want I want competition here, and I want HTC to like to your point. I want them to do well. I want them to
Yeah.
remain a serious presence in this
Uh,
market. It's just a very like
I want
Ian.
multiple winners. I don't want
Yeah,
any one company to win. I want multiple winners. That's because then we all win.
yeah, I mean, I agree with both those sentiments. I just don't know if HTC
it's
has
possible.
the financial position to really be the competitor we need. Valve, Microsoft, Apple,
Yeah,
Amazon, those are the companies with the financial standing to give Facebook a run for its money,
yep.
quite literally. And um, I don't know if HTC, a lot of where they are was helped by Valve. They
Hmm.
it's really, we have to give Valve all the credit that they deserve for their portion of what they did here. And even with Index,
you had a really good phrase earlier when we were talking earlier. What was it? HTC ate Valve's lunch. Was that it?
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Wait, reverse that.
Oh.
Valve is eating HTC's lunch.
Oh,
now.
okay, right. Yeah.
Well, you know, like this. That's kind of like the risk is that Valve, I mean, HTC did a subscription program. That's a great idea, having 100 apps that you can access for $9.99 a month.
Yeah.
And I don't have to pick and choose so carefully. I mean, I guess that's not great for us who are doing these reviews to very carefully let people know this is how you should spend your money. And this is the VR game or two to get this month. Whereas with the subscription program, it's sort of like a Netflix where you spend 20 minutes in something, then delete it off your computer as fast as you can, and then move on to the next thing. I just, yes, I want competition in the market, but I don't know if the subject is worth getting into, but like there's serious privacy issues with this technology that we need to be above board and discuss and be on top of. And I don't know. There's an international issue here where like, am I being biased just being a Westerner and being based in America and trusting, you know, my American laws to protect me when the American laws don't even protect me when it comes to privacy. But to your point about not trusting Facebook, we need some consumer protections in place across the board to keep Facebook, you know, even if Facebook wins,
But
we don't want them to own our identity in cyberspace.
So to that point though, wouldn't, you know, someone like HTC that does, you know, to some extent, definitely more so than Facebook, advocate user private, well, maybe not, maybe that's not the right term, but they definitely came out swinging with an anti-Facebook message, right, alongside Valve back in the day, back in 2016, and
Yep.
them remaining competitive going forward would be somewhat of keeping that fire alive, I guess is one way of putting it. And that's one reason why I do want to see them
I mean,
keep
the
going.
complicated thing here is devs need robust tools to build compelling products. And HTC was out there a year ahead of Facebook with hand tracking APIs, weren't they?
Yep.
But
well,
I'm not seeing anyone use those in a robust way.
Yeah.
And it has to do with how good the tools are for devs to experiment with and how good the platform is at its core. And so far, Facebook is leading the way with alongside Steam tools with and Sony too. You know, there's three really robust platforms that are creating major tools. We spent a fair amount of time talking about what Dreams could do as far as a tool that you're giving lots of people to do lots of amazing things. It's just I don't. They've got two buttons on the Cosmos controllers, right? Two triggers. Like,
yeah, I think so.
That's a complication and an unnecessary complication for a fair number of developers there. And this is not the time on the market to give developers an extra bit of complication. It's a time in the market to simplify the tool sets for them and let them do more impressive things with their tools. And I don't think two triggers is the way forward there.
Keep in mind that the developers themselves get to pick and choose what features of what products they support. And it has to do with how easy each company makes it. It has to do with how much time they have and what their core audience is going to want. And you have to ask yourself, if we have all of these fun features or fun things, are developers going to support them? I mean, there's a lot of third-party VR hardware out there that isn't supported by the majority of developers because it takes extra effort. It puts extra complication into their.
There's a lot of first-party VR hardware.
Well,
Vive trackers,
right,
I mean,
trackers, right? Exactly.
And
Same
and
thing.
that's a perfect example. Vive trackers, that was supported by a dozen devs, maybe a few more.
Yep.
Yeah, what the
And
puck,
those,
right? I already did that joke in the previous
Oh,
episode,
but
though.
my
like
heart skipped
the
so
devs that
many beats.
supported that, I mean, they're not doing well. That they spent an extraordinary amount of time supporting an accessory that very few people got, and it's not. You could do full body tracking with several pucks and a well-made piece of software, and that's a cool idea. But it just never got widely supported enough to really
No.
represent any kind of significant market to anyone. And so
Mhm.
it's a dead end, and I'm really concerned that devs looking to support Cosmos are at a dead end. Like that's it doesn't make sense for given the numbers that we talk about on Steam.
Yep.
Why would
But
anyone support it?
maybe you know maybe in a really if we're really optimistic, maybe HTC are reassessing, looking at the price and saying, actually, even 500 isn't enough. Maybe we need to go to 450 or 400. And I mean, you're shaking your head because that's a very, very, very optimistic assumption. But I am just talking about how does Cosmos get back to a point where it's competitive in the
No,
market,
but
and because that's
I
what I want. That's what I
Fire
want.
sale.
but no, I
Fire
think
sale.
that's
Faster.
the trick there is. I mean, so Nate Mitchell, rest in peace, since he's gone now.
Rip.
But one of his last words to me were at GDC a year ago when
He's
they were
not actually
announcing
dead,
Rift
Ian.
S. Was
Just so
that
everyone knows, Nate
here's
Mitchell
the
didn't die.
price of Rift S 400. Here's the price of Quest 400, and he basically said something to the effect of, we dropped price on Rift over time.
Mm,
We could do the same thing over time with Rift S. And so even if Cosmos is able to get their price competitively with Rift S where it is now, that's not necessarily where Rift S is going to be 6 months from now.
mm,
Right, because Facebook will
true.
just drop that price. I mean,
They already did it
$20
to him
is
once.
enough. Yeah, right. Right. Well, I think that we'll be keeping an eye on HTC. I think there's a lot still to be discussed, and or to be disgusted by. We don't know. There's just
Well,
we don't know
customer
what's going to
support,
happen.
right? Give us customers. If you have problems with customer support with any company in the VR space, tips at uploadvr.com. Let us know what you're experiencing. We see those emails, and even if we aren't able to spend the time to get a response to you, and we apologize when we're not able to give that time because we're on some story. We see those emails and we take them into account. And so we've heard the reports, we've seen reports of things with HEC. We've seen people report customer issues with Facebook. We've seen people report them with Valve. But we take it all in stride. We fill it. We try to keep a record of all those things. And when we hear it from enough people, we can use those things to pressure these companies to be accountable for their work.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Groovy. All right, Jamie. Any housekeeping before we wrap this up?
That is a good question, and I will talk while I am thinking. I am sure there are some exciting things happening on Upload. Ian mentioned earlier this week that you and David streamed
Iron
Iron
Lights,
Lights,
yeah.
which is definitely something that people should check out. Check out our streams. David's getting back into doing a couple more of those. Got some good ones on that front. We got X Tau as well, which I think is a really cool game. We are currently rolling out our impressions on the VR Power Oculus Quest battery pack, which is also a counterweight, and we know there's a ton of interest in that. So we should later today, all things going well, have an unboxing video, which will be really cool to check out.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully by the end of this week, I think this is the case that we'll have a review as well, which will definitely be something that you guys should look out for. Half-Life Alyx is out on March 23rd. Come back then, maybe.
And GDC.
GDC, big one.
Right
Next
around the
month.
corner. Yep.
Game Developers Conference, traditionally a pretty important event for VR. We're going to be there. Myself, Ian, David, and Xena will be there. So we're going to hit the show pretty full on this year. Yeah, that's definitely something to look out for.
I want to do a big shout out to the folks that are watching in big screen. Hi, hello, how you doing? Thanks for watching. Also, all the folks that are making comments in our YouTube stream. This is a live show, so we are making these comments visible, and we're talking about them, and we're interacting with you, our audience. So we really appreciate all of you. You're very valuable individuals. Thank you. In the meantime, if you're not playing O-Shape with your new free code or buying it yourself, go check out uploadvr.com for all, like I say in the beginning of the show, news, reviews, comments, and interviews from the industry. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Jamie, as he fiddles his thumbs over
Oh,
there.
it's just so addictive.
Thank you all very much for watching. We'll see you in the future.
Farewell. Lead good lives.